Is it because we're streaming it back to the cloud automatically? It's not being housed internally.
Hmm. So you're talking about the RAM of the processing board,
Yeah,
all right? Not the RAM of the camera or any
the
other
CPU,
device.
not the GPU, just the process the nano. Well, whatever we're going to use, Raspberry, whatever, the Jetson, whatever. Well, I guess the Jetson's a graphics card. The yeah, the CPU, whatever we're using.
Hmm. So you're asking especially for the Jetson why use the 8 gig and not the 4 gig?
No, no. The Jetson specific isn't that a graphics card, a processor?
It's a system on a chip, yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is the computer that we're building from scratch, not the Raspberry Pi, but the other computer. I guess in this case we're calling it a Jetson Nano. Why doesn't that need huge amounts of RAM since you're processing all this data?
Christian, you're muted.
So I can probably pick some of that up, I suppose. Is that so? Are we referring to RAM or are you referring to like hard drive disk space?
No, actual
RAM.
RAM.
Um, so I think with regards to, I don't think we need an incredible amount of RAM because it's not. We're only working with certain size images, I suppose, and they aren't like if we work with 5 images for every frame that comes through, we won't need more memory capacity than that 5 image space. There is some additional stuff that we store as well in process, but I think, like from my point of view, I guess ideally we want a unit that does the tracking and potentially offload the writing of the images and that sort of stuff to something else like a Raspberry Pi. But I don't think it's too. So especially for the simple tracker, it's not too memory intensive because we don't essentially have models in memory and all that sort of stuff. We just basically need the memory space to process the image, do stuff with the image, and essentially store a little bit of tracking information as well.
Well, that's what I was.
Also,
Are we taking the video? Are we taking the image that's coming from the camera immediately and offloading it to the cloud, the AI, or are we doing it? Are we capturing what they capture or holding on to it momentarily on the CPU internally, and then we pass it on? Because I use Photoshop and I use editing systems, and we need lots of RAM to be able to process all of those all that data. And I understand that when you're using Photoshop, it's because you've got multiple images that are 22 megs or 100 megs or whatever open. So you do need that RAM. But I'm thinking this about the video. If we're sitting here capturing all this data from these cameras, don't you need RAM for that as well?
yeah, so not so the simple tracker. What it will do is it'll just process one frame at a time. It's not gonna store the sequence of frames in memory. It's just gonna process that one frame at a time, and it's gonna keep track of some metadata to do with that frame. It's not. So I understand what you're saying, but it's not quite the same sort of thing. So we aren't processing like a big video file. We're processing an image. Essentially, we're processing an image. Once that image is processed, then we we hopefully we're going to send it to another device like a Raspberry Pi, where it can possibly persist it to disk or do something with it. But as soon as we've done that, then we're ready to process the next image. And once we process a image and it's done, that image is kind of no longer in memory, or the space allocated for that image is now consumed by the new image that's come in.
Got it.
It's more along those lines than we have to load like a massive sequence of images, like a video file, and have to iterate over lots and lots of frames and slice and dice and those sorts of things. So that's kind of my view of it anyway. It might not be right, but that's just my interpretation.
Christian, maybe you can go into detail. You're muted.
Yeah, still can't hear you.
You can hear him.
No, I can't.
You can't. No. Can anyone hear him? No.
No.
Okay. So,
Out of here.
No, it's a processing pipeline, Tommy. So it's just a Turing machine. Something gets in, bit processed, goes out, next comes in. So the only RAM that's necessary is exactly necessary for that particular task only. There is no other processing. I mean, if there is additional need, then we have to change boards. If we cannot use, let's say, 8 gig and we need more just because of processing needs.
Oh, so that's a fixed amount? That's a fixed amount on the board?
Yeah, you buy a Jetson board as a system on a chip, so there's also the RAM on the chip, so you can't change that. You can't enhance it, nothing. You take it as it is, 8 gig. You can select between the 4 and the 8 gig one.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Hey Rebecca, is it you? Rebecca, you there? Okay. Can anyone hear her? I can't hear her.
She's on mute if she's trying.
Okay.
Hasn't spoken yet.
So actually, I want to take the chance. Oh, there she is. Hello. New icon.
Hello, everyone. Exactly.
So I wanted to take the opportunity today and to ask any one of you about your first ROS2 experiences. And maybe Mike, you can start and maybe give us an idea of what your trials and errors came up to now with ROS2.
Yeah, I can try. I mean, so I'm just trying to understand the kind of get to grips with like the implementation details with regards to ROS2. So I do understand messaging. Like I do understand when you write software in such a way that you send messages to components and those sorts of things. So I do kind of get that. So I didn't have to do that initial bit of mental arithmetic to try and understand that. But so I completely understand why the ROS, why moving towards the ROS2, and that definitely has helped with the understanding of how ROS2 works and so forth and so on. But yeah, so my take on it is actually pretty positive, really. So I mean, so I kind of started looking into it a week ago, maybe, and cut some codes. I think maybe a week ago, just stuff like copying stuff off the net, sort of thing, And yeah, so far I've got I've defined essentially a bit of an interface library. So it's defining your own message types and the data structures around messages that you want to send back and forth, and also setting up just the whole, a public publisher and a subscriber via topic. So that stuff's fairly straightforward, really. And then also getting a service up and running. So just what I was trying to do is basically just have my settings centrally and via service request those settings. So I'm still trying to get my head around the best way of doing all this stuff. But yeah, just getting a service up and running with my own message type. And then yesterday I was kind of trying to understand the best way to run this, like run a ROS2 system in a way, because it's so like in software industry we have like orchestrators and things like that essentially can manage the running of containers. So you're not really have to manage that. Like you don't have to run this file and then run that file and then run that file to try and get a whole bunch of these things up and running.
Or container orchestration.
Sorry?
Docker Compose.
Yeah, so exactly that sort of thing. So we have that sort of mechanisms available, and I was just trying to understand how you do that in a sort of ROS2 environment, and it looks like there are these launch files which are similar basically to Docker Compose, really. So you basically bring up a whole bunch of individual ROS packages, I think they're called. And I mean, packages can contain nodes, which essentially is the kind of the processing level. So that's the executable in a sense. So one package can contain several executables, and the way you kind of bring that system up is you run something called a launch file, which essentially can bring up as many of these nodes as you need, really. And I managed to get that to work last night. So I was quite chuffed with that. And yeah, that's kind of as far as I've got, really. So it's not been, I don't think it's been, I also had to get an understanding of how to develop using, I've not really developed using a development container before. So, but I mean, I kind of understand conceptually why you'd want to do that and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, that wasn't too difficult, and yeah, I mean it's not too challenging in all fairness. It's fairly, it's not too difficult. It's worth giving it a go. You know, it's so that's my view, and I like the idea of having. I like the idea of potentially having multiple compute nodes, so devices that are part of the same like ROS application, which consists of multiple compute nodes and lots of different nodes running on. So lots of different executables running on each node, so forth and so on. So it's really quite cool, and it seems to manage all that stuff for you. So that's as far as I've got, really. So that's my intro.
Yeah.
My view.
Cool. Especially your part, I wanted to ask you, because Idle last time mentioned it. Are you going to split the tracker into several subparts and using the outputs of them as ROS2 messages, so to split up your tracker into several ROS nodes?
Yeah, so I think that's the approach. Yes. So I'm doing this in part because I understand the simple tracker code, and I kind of understand all the components and all that sort of stuff. So it's also a mechanism for me to try and learn more about ROS2 as well. And I was going to I was going to go down the route of try and split Simple Tracker out into specific components. A lot of that is also just due to just for learning exercise. It might not be necessarily the right thing to do, but it also just helps me understand. It just helps with the learning, you know, and gaining experience and stuff like that in the platform. So I was going to try and do that. Yeah, I was going to try and basically to start off with do a frame publisher, so the thing that publishes the video frame, and then I was going to have then there was going to be the Simple Tracker. So this is how I wanted the video publisher, then the central tracker, and the central tracker that initially won't be split up too much, but then stuff like the what are they called? Sorry, mate. Let me just quickly I forget what they're called now. The listeners, so those will be split out into a subscriber. So something will have to publish to the listeners, and also the visualizers. So the things that show you the thing that shows you the actual video. So that will also be a subscriber, and the tracker will publish to those. I was going to kind of try and get to that point, and then I can maybe demo that to you guys, and then we can kind of look as to how we split it up even further, because I know I mean, that's quite a lot of work, because there is stuff like you're going to split out. You essentially want the visualizers to receive a stream like the frame, and then also it needs to receive the bounding boxes for the tracks, and it's the thing that basically puts the bounding box onto the image versus receiving an image which includes the bounding boxes on the image.
Yeah.
So so in that respect, so there's quite a bit of work there, and I was just going to hopefully try and get to that point, and by that stage, hopefully I'll have a bit more of an understanding of how things should maybe work, and I might just and just kind of go from there, really. So that was going to be the initial target, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is. So you're creating messages that subscribers can subscribe to.
Exactly that. Yeah, so it's to try, and I'm still trying to understand the tooling as well with ROS2 and how to update things and fire messages from outside the system. So basically to update settings, because you kind of so there's quite a lot of learning still to be done, and understanding of how these things should like fit together and stuff, and yeah, I've got that little repository that I've got on the Guide 360 GitHub account, and I'm just going to it's going to all be in there basically. So at any point in time, and I'll try and make it so that at any point in time when I do a pull request into main branch, it'll be something that can run and actually you don't have to go and install stuff. It should be all self-contained sort of thing,
Okay.
That's the goal anyway. So
it was a hint for me. Thank you.
No, but but it is. But I mean, it's easy if it's done that way. And I might, it's because otherwise you have the sort of troubles you've just experienced. Because it's and that's just, there's a handful of people running this, so you can imagine how it will, once you scale out, how how many support calls there potentially could be. So if you could eliminate those, then I think you're in a better place, sort of thing, you know.
This is idea with Docker to prevent this problem of it works on my machine. So when we create
Exactly. Yeah.
reproducible Docker files, then
So yeah, so I'm completely with you on that one now. So I've kind of, when you mentioned previously about we should do development inside Docker containers, I wasn't so sure, but I didn't realize that Visual Studio Code, it was that nicely integrated into Visual Studio Code. So after my little experience with Ross, I've actually realized it's a doddle, really. I mean, Visual Studio Code, the integration portion is really good. So, you know, I'm in agreement with you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's my sorry, there was a lot of talking from me. I hope you guys don't mind, but that's basically my experience for the week, really.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. And
Okay.
so what you were explaining here is that you're going to create a ROS node or several ROS nodes that can vice versa subscribe and so forth. And
Yes.
basically at the end there's an output that something like Lionel's kinetics analysis can subscribe to, right? And so
That,
to get, go ahead.
yeah, no, sorry, I interrupted there.
No,
Apologies.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And I'd like to be able to have it so that I can run a couple of nodes on like a Raspberry Pi. So, you know, ideally I'd like to be in a position where, you know, there's a little bit of distribution going on as well. So it's not just everything running on one actual PC. You know, it'd be nice if it could run on a couple of them. So, I mean, that's something I still need to understand is to, I know you can define like a master node and then, you know, things draw from the master. So I still need to understand that a bit. But yeah, ultimately, my view would be to, when I kind of show you guys, is hopefully to have it distributed across more than one compute board. You know, like more than one PC, really. And just see, yeah, just kind of also try and understand performance as well, because I mean that does, you know, that's usually with these sorts of distributed systems, there's usually a performance impact, because obviously it makes things quite a bit more complicated with debugging and all, you know, all those sorts of things, but there is usually a bit of a performance impact which you kind of have. So it's just to try and understand what that's going to be. And I know Ido's fairly convinced that it's going to be negligible. So we'll just see how it goes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And brings me to the point to ask you whether you can support Lionel for getting his first feet, getting his feet wet, let's say, into ROS 2. Because you're creating the output that he needs for his analysis, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm by no means an expert, right? So, you know, very far from that. But I mean, I can try and help wherever I can, you know, because it's only by getting into the weeds with this sort of stuff that you experience the problems and the struggles as well. So, you know, it's so of course, of course I can
Mike,
try and help.
we don't. The only ROS expert is Ido so far, or Christian. You can assume maybe has knowledge of ROS 1. So
yeah, maybe we should have picked a more common message broker.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't say that. let me explain a little bit what I did the last week, because I've got a ROS2 running at the moment, and I've got a Docker image of Indie server running with ROS2, and this is up to date now, and I'm doing some ROS2 tutorials at the moment to figure out how one can set up any program, any application to run within ROS2 and connect to the services it provides. This is my status at the moment, and I think we should go by ROS2 directly, not using any other messaging service, because ROS2 you can think of is if you have got an operating system and add a nerve system to it, then this is what ROS2 is. And because of that, because you can interact with at least any application, and it doesn't has to be on the same machine, makes it perfect for what we have to do. And what I have to do now is to get the camera working with it. It is connected already to the Indie server Docker image, and now needs a program like, let's say, Fire Capture or R Capture or something I wrote myself to provide the images. If this is ready, then the simple tracker or the tracker at all can take these images because it subscribes to the image service. And then we are there where we want to be. So I think it's not a good solution to introduce a second, third, or any other messaging system.
Yeah,
Because
so
ROS2 does this. Yeah.
I agree with Christian there. The getting it up and running, like with regards to being able to send a message from one node to another, is essentially, it's basically like 2 or 3 lines of code. It is so minimal. There's no real setup or anything. It's really quite trivial, actually.
It's just subscribing to the service.
Yeah,
nothing more.
And yeah, it's so you don't have to worry about, do you want to set up a queue and does it have to be persistent or not, and all those sorts of things. So I'm gonna, after working with it for this last week, I kind of agree with Christian. I think it's quite a good platform, actually. It's not that I've compared it with other stuff, in all fairness, so I have to put that there, but I think it's quite straightforward. So,
I just wanted to add that Magnus should probably get with Christian and Mike G, because Magnus is working on the actual video player. So that way he can see what it is you're sending it, and so he can get organized on that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so far, since we don't have a package definition or anything else, so I've done some own mocking just to get some interface to work on, so we can change it later when we are more settled how things will be packaged. So it's no hurry. I'm not stuck with anything or so it's cool for me.
Okay. So Rebecca, if I understood you correctly, you mean that Magnus should talk with Mike about the implementation of his subscription service for ROS2 so that he can subscribe to it, right?
Yes, Mike and Christian, to organize how he's going to receive the video stream, whether it's a video stream or frame by frame, that sort of thing. Just get coordinated on that, so that way he knows how to receive it, so that way that he can have it shown in the media player that he's going to use.
The thing is that at this point, when Mike has his services ready, I have my services ready. It's just that you link them by just the name, because you subscribe to the name, and the name is indicating the service. This is all what we have to do to change what what we are writing. I think at my point, we have to think about the data structure that is delivered. And there I have to talk with Mike about what are we going to deliver, and if we use it in a very generalized way. Let's say we provide the whole data set, and every part of it, like the tracker or the GUI, is taking out of this generalization what everybody needs for their own task. And if we do it like this, nothing gets lost. I don't know if you see it like that way, Mike. So if I provide not only the image frame by frame, but let's say GPS information, time stamping, and other stuff that I can get out of the camera, you would just take the images, I guess. Would you?
Yeah, I suppose, because so I generally can't think too far ahead. Just
Yeah,
for
me
my
too.
own, that's just like my own thing. So I don't. So at the moment, I know I'm going to need a stream of images, or like a sequence of frames, and that's I don't really know if I. Yeah, so I've not got anything in the simple tracker that is clever enough to use like GPS stuff or anything like that. It's purely just uses the frame. So that's going to be my main input for now anyway.
And the GUI can use the GPS informations, the time tracking for use of anything, and what we can come up with next. So I think it's a good idea to talk about the data structure and see what we can provide in the service. And I think since we just need the name to subscribe to it, I have to come up with a very good data structure for it.
Yeah. All right.
So I mean, this stuff is subject to change, right? I mean, I'm just experimenting, so please don't. It's not like this is how it's going to be. I'm just messing about, really, just to try and I mean, if you want, so unfortunately, the way my setup is my Discord runs on a different PC than my it's not a Linux PC, it's a Windows machine, and then I do the simple tracker stuff on a Linux machine. But if you guys want me to, like, at some point just work through the GitHub, like the stuff that I've done in there. I mean, I'm more than happy to do that. There's not terribly much in there, in all fairness, but I'm more than happy to kind of to go through it. I can share my screen and talk through it if you want me to.
Can you show the GitHub again from last week's presentation?
I can, yeah. So I can show you. I can show you the bits that I've done. Is that the NVIDIA one that Ido shared? Is that we?
Not sure.
So I can show. Okay, so I mean, I can show you the bits that.
Way. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if you guys want to, I can share my screen and show you like the bits that I've. Yeah. Okay.
But I think, Christian, it is necessary that at some point in time we should be all on the same page what the implementation of ROS 2 means. For now, my opinion, it doesn't make sense if everyone creates his own experience. You know what I mean? So at the end, we end up with 5 different views. You know, So
No, I don't think that this will happen, because ROS2 is meant to be like this. So everybody can do its own stuff, and it is generalized in such a way that it doesn't matter what machine you have, what OS is running, where it stands. This doesn't really matter, because only things are matter is how the service is named, how the package is named, and what nodes does it contain. And because ROS2 is designed like that, it provides this information, and you just have to subscribe to the service.
would you say? Sorry, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah. What I'm setting up in the coming week is I'm going to take my Pi 4, my Jetson Nano, my laptop I'm working on now, and my graphic hell machine with a RTX 2080, and provide everything over my intranet just to see how I can connect from each different machine to each service and to each node. Because then I can take a look to the camera from, let's say, the graphic hell machine, and run maybe the simple tracker from the Jetson Nano on it directly. So I've got, let's say, a web GUI on the graphic hell machine, and the simple tracker is doing its stuff on the Nano. And how this works out, I can test with my own equipment. And if I see that there is a problem, okay, I've got some other laptops, one with an installed Win 10 version, then I can see how the whole system is working together, and how things fit, and where some problems may be. Then I can tell you what I found out next Sunday. This will be a little bit challenging, but I think we can rip it off. So if there isn't any problem, because ROS2 is designed and implemented like this, we do not have to worry about who sets up what, because it's generalized.
What about having a kind of a starting paper, just a one-pager, that describes how we implement ROS2 and what the messages shall look like, and the protocol format, and what the node
I
names
already
will be?
provided that.
Really?
It's readable
Where?
in our Discord chat.
Oh, where? Where can I find it?
If you open up the Discord chat we have at the moment
Here in this chat. Okay.
for the video generalized,
Okay.
and he already posted this introductory paper, let's say, how to learn ROS2. This is all you need.
Question, do we even really need Docker for this?
It goes nicely with it. Ido and me talked about it. The Indie server couldn't be run at the moment in ROS2 directly. We're going to re-implement it. But there is a Docker image for the Indie server, and this is what I'm using now. I set up ROS2, I set up Docker, I took the Docker image of the Indie server and connected the camera. The only thing I have to do now is run an application in from ROS2, or start it with ROS2 to get an image and to provide it to anywhere else. This is what I just have to do. And if I have succeeded with that, let's say in the upcoming week, then we are there that someone can take this provided image, and I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter where a ROS2 is set up, because it's generalized to everything, every machine that you can think of, and interconnecting with something is at maximum generalized. And yes, Docker goes nicely with it because you can run any program within Docker.
Okay, so we interrupted Michael.
That's okay. That's no worries. Yeah, so I can kind of just talk you through the bits that I've. First of all, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
It's like okay. So basically, I've got a little bit of a README. I put together a bit of a README there that you can have a read of. But essentially, what we have is I don't know if it's from the bottom up or top down, but so I'm going to just. So essentially, what we've got is we've got a development container that gets spun up, and I install a couple of things here, just that I need to be able to interact with OpenCV and basically send some messages across. There's this stuff over here. There appears to be a bug in the Colcon build system whereby it has to be version 58.2. They've moved on to version 60 something now, but that keeps on falling over. So the way to work around that is it has to be this version of the setup tools. So that's what all this sort of stuff is about. And then if I go to, I think it's this. Yeah, so this script just does some other stuff just to essentially set up the environment. And then, so this ROS step, that basically is ROS dependencies. So what we're doing here is we just setting up a ROS repository, then updating our dependency list and essentially then just installing the dependencies. Colcon will then is the build tool to use to build the packages. You then have to source the build, and then basically you can run, and this bit over here is just running using the launch facility. I'll try and elaborate on that a little bit shortly. So the main governance of how you implement or work with ROS goes in the source folder. These are things that are called packages. So I've got several packages. This CV Basics that has a couple of nodes. So these things are nodes. They basically inherit from. So this library basically is the ROS2 library, and then essentially you inherit nodes from it, and nodes have, because you superclassing from a node or you inheriting from a node, you have functionality that is available in that node. So you have stuff like getting to a logger, creating a timer, and all these sorts of things. And it's a good idea to have a look through the tutorials. There's also a video on YouTube that I found that is quite informative. So that will explain these things a lot better than I can, because I'm not very good at explaining stuff. So just please bear that in mind. But essentially, this one package, the CV Basics package, this is the structure of it. And in the package.xml, we basically have the dependencies that the package uses. Those are the things that get installed into the package once you run that rosdep.install. It kind of loops through all the packages, looks through the package.xml, looks at all the dependencies, and ensures that those things are installed and available to your project. That's obviously quite important to get the whole thing to work. yeah, so one of the things that I found was there's already packages out there that facilitate the transportation of an OpenCV frame from one node to another. So you don't have to kind of rewrite all, you don't have to write all that stuff. So essentially what that means is in order to publish a camera frame, you essentially connect to the camera. So these are like OpenCV concepts. So you basically connect to the camera. My camera, I just connect via RTSP. So if it's a USB camera, you would just put the index of the camera there. So it generally would be 0 or 1. But that's just the URL that I use to connect to the camera. Essentially what you're telling it is you wanting to create a timer, and the timer period is 1/10 of a second. So every 1/10 of a second, the timer will tick and will call this callback, which you've got over here, which basically is just a function, and that function essentially will basically read a frame from the camera. If the reading of that frame was a success, it will then use this CV2 bridge, this library, to wrap that frame so that it can be published over the ROS2 to a subscriber, basically. So that's, I mean, in all fairness, in order to publish that's basically it. So that's how you publish a video stream from a camera to a subscriber. I mean, this stuff over here is basically just stuff to manage this node. So again, it's probably best if you have a look at the tutorials for more detail about that. But I just kind of wanted to highlight how easy it is to publish a OpenCV frame from one node to another. And then in the other node, you essentially subscribe to it. You subscribe to so this over here is the subscription. So basically you're subscribing to that endpoint. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but I'll just call it an endpoint or URI or whatnot. And essentially, as soon as the frame is received, it basically calls this method or this callback method over here. And all this thing does is essentially just shows the image, shows the frame. And these just use standard OpenCV. This is just standard OpenCV API sort of stuff. So this isn't anything to do with ROS, if that makes sense. So I found that online, and I kind of thought, so I got that working, and then I wanted to kind of do some of my own stuff and just kind of mess about a little bit. So I just put together these other little packages. Really, I mean, the main thing I wanted to get working was this interface package, and basically these are how messages or service messages are defined. So that basically is a, well, I called it a config entry service message type. So it's basically just the kind of thought process here was that there's a central configuration service, and that stores all the configuration, and then other nodes contact it to get their configuration. And also, if a configuration entry is updated, the configuration package will publish the fact that a configuration entry has been updated. So if you depend on certain, like if you depend on, for example, the camera URL or the if images need to be resized or whatever, you can listen for those events to be published, so you know if that configuration has been updated. Yeah, you get notified, and then you can essentially query the configuration service to get an updated set of configuration. At the moment, the way I've got it, and this is just purely because I don't know how to do it in any other way, is I just query a configuration entry at a time. So versus sending for a configuration package, like I want all the configuration related to a camera, I don't do that yet. I just basically go, right, give me the URL, give me the this, give me the that. And then I still have to work on updating it on the other node that is not the configuration node. So I'm still working on that stuff. But yeah, so the big thing there was to define the message types. And those message type definitions are in this interface package, as I mentioned. The service package has got the configuration. Like if you query for the configuration, and the message folders essentially got the notes, the config change notification. So if a configuration changes, then basically we just want to know, I think, yeah, we just want to know what key has changed so someone can subscribe to that. And so what I found was that services and topics have these two different interface types. So basically, a topic uses a message, whereas a service uses a service message. I don't know why. That's kind of just how it works, really. I've not tried to use a topic message type in a service, so I've not actually seen if it's restricted in that way.
From what I understand, the server requires a server request and response, where the topic just needs the information. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right, because the service message type has a response as well, whereas a topic message type doesn't, because that's you just publishing stuff. So so I suspect, yeah, you're absolutely right. So that was to try and, so I wanted to get that configuration service up and running. So in order to get that configuration service up and running, I had to create these interfaces so that I could communicate and query for configuration items, that sort of thing. And then so these are really just straightforward. So the visualizers is just a node that that basically listens for video frames being published, and I've just got two different types because I was just messing about, really. So this one displays the frames full frame, and this one displays resized versions of it. It doesn't resize. Resized frames are published. It just displays the resized frames. So that was just trying to get that to work and get an understanding of that. And then so the simple tracker at the moment, all it does really is it just publishes some frames. So we've got just a configuration client here that basically is a service client that will get configuration entries. So it's just a wrapper around a service client, basically, and then this is just the image publisher node. So you can see these were just me retrieving configuration bits, and I was experimenting with retrieving a string and an int and a boolean, just see how to interact with that, basically, and then these over here are just I set up 2 publishers. This again is the service endpoint or the URI or the whatever you want to call them, really. Again, this is just a timer that says I want to do this 10 times a second. You create the timer. I get the camera URL, which I retrieved from the service, the configuration service, and set up the OpenCV bridge to be able to publish the OpenCV frame onto the ROS network. The timer callback happens, and basically I get my frame. If it's successful, I will publish the main frame, and I will also then resize and publish the resized frame. This is just a helper method to doing some resize. That's kind of the majority of it, really. I mean, the only other thing I will probably show you guys is this part, really. So this is I need to show you guys one more thing, actually. So each one of these packages has if I go to the configuration package, this setup.py file is basically got the entry point. So in order to use ROS to execute the node, it needs to know what the entry point is for a specific package, and that essentially is where it's defined. You can then execute it in that way. So you basically ask ROS2 to run that entry point for that package. So basically, I got to this point. So I got all that stuff working, and I got to this point, and then I was having to open like a whole bunch of terminals and running these things, one by one, because once you run a package, it essentially spins. So basically that terminal then is kind of out of action. So you've got to launch another terminal and run the next package and stuff and so on.
Oh, you can
so
use
I kind of thought
the ampersand symbol to run the process in the background. So
okay. Yeah, so I was kind of thinking, well, that's a bit of a pain, right? Because so
if it feels so
surely
painful, then something is wrong.
Yeah, so surely there's a better way to do this, and that's when I kind of found this launch facility that ROS offers, and so basically, so what this allows you to do is essentially allows you to run up to start up a whole bunch of packages or nodes all in one go in a specific sequence, I suppose. And there are a couple of like by convention sort of things. So generally the folder that you have your launch scripts is called launch and that sort of thing. So inside the launch folder, we have this launch script, which basically what we have here is we just stipulate that we want 4 nodes to be run. These are the nodes, and we want them to be run straight away, and we basically start all 4 of them up in one go by executing that launch script in that way. So ROS2 launch, and then basically a pointer to the launch package and the launch script, and that will essentially start up all the nodes we want all at the same time, versus you having to go and manually start them up individually. And that's as far as I've got, really.
Hey, Mike, a question. Where does the output of the bounding boxes come to?
Oh man, I haven't got that far yet.
But where would you integrate it? Just a
yeah. So what I was
question.
thinking. Yeah. So what I was going to try, and I don't So there's going to be an interesting thing here about having to. I'm just going to stop sharing. Okay. So
Okay.
there's going to be an interesting question about basically synchronization. I think because I don't know what the best process is or the best thing is. Do you essentially publish a message which contains the video frame as well as all the details about the bounding boxes, or do you publish those things separately when they become available?
I would go for separately because
That
there
sort
are
of stuff, you know.
separately needs. So Lionel, for example, only
Yeah,
needs the bounding boxes, not the images.
yeah, exactly. So it was. So there's gonna be a little bit. So that's what I was gonna go for initially, and see if there was gonna be an issue with synchronization. But you know, you got to start somewhere. So So even if ultimately you have to, for the visualizer, you have to publish a image that contains the bounding boxes, you can still have a separate notification service that just publishes the bounding boxes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So I was so so
I have a
so
question
my
regarding why would Lionel need a bounding box? I mean, he just needs the like center of mass of bounding box.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
maybe there's some
So that's fair.
insight to be had in the surface area of the bounding box. So I would stay with the bounding box.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So my next task or the next thing I want to do really is I want to kind of so that simple tracker package, I want to kind of build that out a little bit so that I get a video file or I get a frame. I'm able to then do what the simple tracker currently does and track stuff and whatnot, and then I would like to start publishing stuff from that, like for Lionel and for the visualizers and all this sort of stuff, really. So that's kind of what I'm going to try next, and also try and understand from a configuration, like try and understand from a configuration point if I can get like a whole section of configuration versus just one configuration entry at a time. You know, it's really kind of basic stuff, right? I mean, I know this stuff is basic stuff, but it's just trying to understand. For me, it's just trying to understand how to do it and what's available already that's already been done and those sorts of things. So it's still it's very basic, kind of very early. You know, it's very entry level sort of stuff.
Oh, it's awesome. It's great what you did.
So yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so that's as far as I've got really.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect. Great. That's sweet. My question to you at the very beginning was, I want to know about your experiences with ROS 2 up to now. Actually, I didn't expect you to have so much experience for now. So you get really wet feet. Rebecca, what is your impression up to now? Rebecca? Okay. Then I turn my question to Nicola.
Oh, she's on mute on mute if she's maybe.
Rebecca, can you hear us? You're muted. Okay, she has to step out and step in again.
I guess her mic broke down. It happens to me sometimes.
There she is again. And again.
Yeah.
Up and away.
When you see me doing that, it's because of my mic.
Your mic got the cold.
My Linux is getting confused between multiple microphone sources.
Okay.
So, from my side, I'm really into this idea to split Simple Tracker in multiple services, like one to detect motion detection, then publish the detections on some topic, then another component to look at motions and group them by tracks, so Lionel can get the tracks. So because this way we have greater separation of concerns and code is smaller, readable, and more maintainable.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and regarding unsupervised clustering, this implementation that I had,
Yeah.
it was relying on NumPy. And the problem with NumPy is that he's CPU bound. It's not acceleratable. So I started rewriting this stuff to be CUDA compatible.
What? Can you repeat this? Did you say you're gonna rewrite NumPy to be CUDA compatible?
No, not the NumPy, but this unsupervised clustering. I'm going to rewrite that because right now it's written using NumPy, and I'm
Okay.
going to
Use
rewrite
different
it to.
algorithms instead of NumPy.
Yeah. Same algorithms, just different libraries for data representation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it in TensorFlow, so
Mm-hmm.
I can utilize CUDA.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. Last week I was sick, so I was away from my PC.
It's still to hear.
I'm what?
It's still to hear. You've got a cold nose.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's it from me. There is also unsupervised clustering implementation in PyTorch, and I am going to check this out also. But I am more familiar with the code that I used before, which is NumPy and TensorFlow, but not fully TensorFlow.
Okay.
So now I'm like in between two chairs. Should I go to the PyTorch or should I keep with the TensorFlow and go fully? But I will figure something out, I guess.
Okay.
So it's clustering based on what feature of the tracks?
No, it's clustering based on visual features that are extracted via convolutions from the
Okay.
picture.
Okay.
So I have like a neural network with convolutions that accepts small pictures, then extracts features into a vector. Then I cluster these vectors, and then similar vectors most likely point to the similar pictures.
And which frame of the track? Is it the first frame? Is it the middle one? Every other 5?
I don't have concept of a track right
Okay.
now because this is for the I'm trying to prepare dataset for a
Training.
image classification task for image classification task that is working on isolated frames. This is what I'm working on.
Awesome. It's great. Cool.
Yeah, it's a pre-process actually, right? It's something that we need for
Yeah, if you want to
getting rid of the
train.
noise in the training material.
Yeah. If you want to train anything at all,
Yeah.
we need to pre-process the dataset.
Yeah.
So about ROS2. So now the image-based clustering. In order to get it to run in your environment, that means that you would have to download Mike's code from GitHub and add your own subscriber module to the launch. Is that how it would work?
I think what Nicola was talking about is not a process that we use in the future, so he's not implementing this in ROS2, right?
No, it's not in ROS2. It's a custom script that will take all the pictures that we have, and it will try to sort it like, okay, pictures of blobs will go there, pictures of black X's, which are most likely drones, are going to another cluster. I'm trying to cluster images by similarity,
Okay.
pretty much.
Okay, that's cool.
So, for example, this clustering works. You have a folder with a bunch of pictures, and you say, okay, take this folder and try to find n groups in it. For
Yeah,
example, 10
okay,
groups.
yeah.
And the more groups you provide, more picky the algorithm will get. But if you, for example, provide just two clusters, to cluster entire folder into two groups, you will most likely get pictures during the day and pictures during the night, because this is the easiest separation.
Makes sense.
So I will need to play with the number of clusters and another parameters of the algorithm to tune it to suit our needs, and hopefully make it more performant, because current approach with NumPy, I mean, NumPy is great for some things because NumPy runs great on a CPU. It is using the AVX 512 CPU extension, which speeds up operations when you are trying to perform uh, for let's say multiplication operation on multiple data, same instruction, multiple data. So it's great when you are running on CPU, but it's wasting my 6000 CUDA cores.
Good waste, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what you were asking, Lionel, is or with other words, your module, the kinematics analysis, relies on the existence of or the output of the bounding boxes and timestamps from the tracker, right?
Yeah, right.
So
That's what I was
when the
asking.
tracker is going to be split up into several ROS modules or nodes,
Yeah.
and your code goes into a single node as well, into a single, I don't know whether you have multiple nodes, but I say for now, one node
Module.
or a module that takes in messages from the simple tracker that you subscribe to, and you get
From a topic. Is that right? Is
yeah,
that a topic? You
Yep.
subscribe to a topic? Yeah, okay.
and then you are fired
Yes.
with bounding boxes with vectors coming in
Yeah.
and timestamps. And so yes, that's a thing that you have to change your input towards that.
Yeah, I think I think it's fine. I think it's just a matter of porting. I think it's a fine way
Yeah,
make
to split
to
all
make it
parts modular. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's cool. I wish I had more time. It's kind of complicated for me now. I'm changing jobs.
Okay.
So that's why the last 2-3 months I did nothing. Actually, it's not like a little bit. It's just plain nothing. But
Now
I
we
see that things are moving along in a great way, and yeah, I hope I can get back to it soon, because it's
no worries, Lionel. Whenever your
yeah.
time allows you to. So when we now focus on the alpha, it will comprise only the minimal things. So it will comprise, of course, a ROS2 infrastructure with the camera, the Pi, a kind of a simple event management, and of course then on the nano the tracker. It would be nice if we could add the kinetics module to it, but it's not necessarily necessary, let's say, for the alpha,
Well,
because
at least an embryo of kinematic module, like not good or perfect, but just base
A1
to
is
start on.
some yeah, of course, yeah. If you can make it to the alpha, so to wrap
Yeah.
this into a ROS node or ROS module, then fine. But it's not that without that there is no alpha. It's not that way. So we can publish the alpha even if we do not have kinematics already in place.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
It's
what I
true.
want to say by this is it relaxes on your side, so you don't have to be
Yeah, no
stressed by
pressure.
that,
Yeah,
no
I like that.
pressure.
I like that. Yeah.
Whenever you're, I mean, and your pro is let Mike and Nicola and Rebecca and Magnus and all these guys find out how to implement ROS the best way. It's afterwards nice for you because you can just then jump on and everything is
Trust me,
prepared.
there is still a lot of legwork to be done before we need kinematics.
Yeah.
All interconnections and everything, data structures which are going to be messaged across modules.
And that got me thinking about a few videos and articles I saw on Reddit. One guy was trying to shoot thunderstorms with his iPhone in slow motion, so it's a very high frame rate, and he caught something like this. So the UFO appeared in the very high frame rate video for maybe a tenth of a second, and that's I don't know, maybe 6 or 10 frames. So
is it in
so it's
several
hard in that
frames?
time.
Is it to be seen in several frames or in just one frame?
Yeah, no, it's
Several.
still
I
in
think I know the video
many
that you are
frames.
thinking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, because it was it was impressive, and so maybe that got me thinking that maybe uh, the frame rate is crucial. Maybe we should also have a component that shoots 100 frames per second
Yeah.
and
Then we
does some
need super
processing
giga
on that as well.
PC.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are hardware limited. The camera defines
Yeah.
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 X
We
frames.
are
Now
struggling
it's
with
5,
16
6 frame
FPS.
at best. Yeah, where that guy inadvertently caught something while shooting at 100 or 200 frames per second.
Maybe it's this strange type of lightning that is like ball lightning. I have a friend that witnessed this phenomenon himself. The transformer on a nearby uh, electricity pole blow up during the storm, and this arc sphere formed and pretty much floated into his backyard and messed up with the gate, and he was looking at like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, it could be that it's this strange ball lightning.
So how long did it float for?
15 seconds, and it was moving
Wow,
slowly. It went like
crazy.
20 meters from the outside of his yard. It was floating into his yard and then come near to the ground. And after like 5 seconds of floating, it touched the ground and discharged or whatever, and it disappeared in a moment. Yeah,
Cool.
he was messed up for weeks.
Yeah, pictures and
That's
lightnings, thunderstorms. You know, when what we see with our eyes is only the visual part of a thunderstorm or the lightning effect. There's so much more in other spectra emanating
Yeah,
from that,
electric field and the
and it could
magnetic
be
field.
heavy photons or something that's not in the visual that can react on the sensor. But if it's stable for several frames and even moves, is it on the same place or does it move?
It was same place if we are thinking about the same video, Lionel.
Yeah, that there's some thunderstorm and some trees, and he's shooting from, I don't know, his house, and looking at his garden. Is that the one?
No, this
You
one
know what?
was
I'll try to
from
find
the
it
from
because
the
I like that video. It was cool.
skyscraper, and he was through the window shooting at the sky. Oh,
Ah,
I
no,
have a
that's not the
question
one.
regarding hardware. Do we still consider the Intel or AMD?
It's all open, still open.
Because I was playing with my tiny dude Jetson Nano, and he's struggling.
Yeah, it depends what you do with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's still the idea to have the Jetson as the main board for the tracker. But if it turns out at the end that, let's say, we come to a point where we say we have to switch that platform, yeah, then we have to. We're not married with the Jetson. It's just it was a good solution from the very beginning.
I like Jetson because it's power efficient. This is the only thing, but we also try to put as much as our compute on CUDA cores, and CUDA is the same efficiency on desktop and on Jetson. They use the same
CUDA
silicon process. Yeah. Same lithography, how it's called.
So I'd say for now,
I gotta go. Good night. See you next week.
Okay. Bye bye, Lionel.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So yeah, the Jetsons are still not from the table. But yeah, it does not mean that we cannot change this in the future. If we have to change this, we have to.
Good thing that we adopted Docker, because if we need to change, it's going to be simpler.
Yeah, true. But still, if we use CUDA, there's not much choice left over.
Yeah.
And I do not want to go with these tensor sticks or something you can stick into a Pi or so.
Yeah, Google Coral. Tensor compute units, TPUs.
Did you test this?
No, tensor processing unit.
Yeah. Did you test that?
I work with TensorFlow, and TensorFlow is compute agnostic. It can run on CPU, CUDA, and TPU. And my GPU, alongside to CUDA, it also contains tensor processing cores. So, yeah, from my side, from the software side, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yo, so Rebecca, are you there? Can we hear you now? Hello, Texas, please come in. No? Does anyone else can oh, there she is. There she is. Hi, Peaks. Your impression about ROS 2 so far, if you can share, if you have any.
Well, I've gone through the first set of tutorials on the ROS 2 website, and I absolutely love it. Okay. It's very intuitive, very simple, very organized, very uncluttered. So I really do love it. It's absolutely wonderful. Okay. So going off of what Mike G said, I noticed that he's already had a setup. He's already built a setup that he's working on. And I don't know what others would think, but I think that would be what Mike G has built. I think that might be a good setup for us to get started with, to just get everything interconnected. Yeah. And, we can iron out any issues. But it looks like he has, that I'm assuming he has an underlay, and then he's got his overlays. And I think the most important thing is that we have one main underlay, and then we build on top of that. And if he's got that
template,
my thoughts are, why not use that? And so that way, for example, Lionel was working on his portion, and so he can write a package that can interact with Mike G's packages that would be sending the images to him. Christian could add his indie software setup, that kind of thing. It just seems to me that now is the right time for us to have an actual definitive ROS 2 build for the Sky 360 system that we can all start working off of and to interact off of. And, on GitHub, we would use branches to build what we're working on, and then once it's finalized, merge it to the main branch. But I don't know what your thinks on that.
It's a fair point, actually. I didn't think about. I mean, I've not thought about. I've not. Yeah, no, that's actually a fair point. My little Docker file is probably a little bit messy. I think is probably the right term, but yeah, I kind of see exactly where you're coming from. I'm not sure it's good enough for what you need, but that doesn't mean we can't get it there, you know?
Mm. Sort of clean up things here and there when we discovered something needs to be fixed, or
Yeah. No, yes. I didn't think about the idea of essentially putting together a Docker build which has all the Sky 360 stuff, which you guys then take and expand on. But yeah, that seems like a logical way to do it, really, versus installing it all and all that sort of stuff.
for example, like how I'm working on the camera mask overlay, and I have that done, so I can set that up and then practice off of Mike G's what he's built to see if I can send it
That's a
to
good point.
wherever he's going. And for example, Magnus is working on creating the media player, so that way he can pull videos or the stream, the frames from whatever Christian is working on, and that sort of thing. So, and I think I think Nikolai was working on the database to store the frames in. And so Nikolai could start working on getting the images from Christian through Ross 2, and start working on building the database for it. See, I think we're at that point.
We should wait with the database. There is still a lot of work to be done before that.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a discussion with Christian about the database today, and he said we shall hold out on it because one thing is definitely that they are going to use Neo4j and GraphQL, and they want to create the database on the fly. So when a sensor is done and it has its output and configuration if needed in the database, then they will create this structure. So more or less on the fly.
And that makes me wonder, should Magnus be talking to Nikolai as well about the stream of the video? Or, they should all coordinate on that. But at any rate, I think that it would be nice to have one single ROS 2 build that we can all start building.
Yeah. So Mike, when you're pretty settled with ROS 2, would you mind setting up such a template, a ROS 2 template, if I may call it that way?
No, that's fine. I'll have to dust off my Docker book and kind of have a read of that as well, because that's the bit that I'm going to struggle with the most. So
I think that Ido already sent links how to take the base ROS 2 Docker image, then extend it with CUDA stuff, then extend it with your custom stuff. It's already shared, I think.
In the Hangout?
Yeah, it's basically just...
It was like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Do you remember?
Yeah, so it's basically just... So I think it's there's a lady, I forget her name now. I think it's Alison something or other, and she's the maintainer of basically the ROS 2 base image for both the running ROS 2 as well as the development environment, she had a GitHub repository which essentially was like a ROS 2 development environment build, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's basically the thing that he took a copy of and put into Sky 360. I know that's basically what I used as my base for the stuff I'm doing. Yeah. Okay. But I think what Rebecca's asking for is something quite different. So she's asking for essentially what she wants is I need to get all my functionality and components and all that sort of stuff wrapped up inside a Docker image that I publish, which then she can use to build on top of. So that she doesn't have to get all my stuff working in her Docker image, and then get all her stuff working, and all that sort of stuff. There's a Docker image which contains all of the ROS2 stuff as well as all my stuff. So she just builds on top of that. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Is it because why should Rebecca need Python stuff from Simple Tracker?
Well, actually, what I'll be needing is more so from Christian, but would be the video stream, for example. So it would be nice if Christian could add his work to that same single repository. And then for me, I would be needing to transfer my mask overlay over to Mike G, the portion that he's working on, which is part of the Simple Tracker. Yeah. So I would also be getting a a file stream from Christian. Well, Magnus will be doing that, but then we'll also be getting information from Simple Tracker regarding, from what I understand, the coordinates and things like that. Yeah. So to display or to use with the GUI. So we'll need those items. It just seems like a good time to start getting it interconnected, because otherwise we'll just be working on assumptions.
Demo assumptions and demo files. Yeah, exactly.
But in isolation as well, which is only good to a point. Yeah.
So I guess our highest priority should be to define the message structures. What's being transmitted in between modules, how the image is being transmitted, how the bounding box is being transmitted, who is consuming what, who is publishing what.
The topics, the services.
So I've spoken with Christian today. I've spoken with Christian today about this topic because it was also my concern. I was feeling like you, thinking before we start hacking that out, we need a kind of a structure or an idea of how it should look like, or we come to the point to have a kind of a template for such stuff. But he said he wants to develop this thing on the fly. So when he's now implementing the camera, the Indy, the Docker, the ROS2 into a ROS2 node, and he has hundreds of parameters shuffling from the camera to the Indy back and forth, and he mapped it already in Swig. But he said, finally, for the system, like the tracker, you would only need, let's say, 2, 3, 4 parameters, data points. So he cannot say that in advance because he does not know what the camera output then will be. So he wants to develop that on the fly. And I said, that's a little bit critical because other people's work depend on that and they do not want just to wait. And he said they shall just develop and make their assumptions and work from there. And we can change anything later on, because I'm by no way any specialist in ROS2, but he said that ROS2 and the simplicity of it allows for that. Exactly, to develop in that way.
I mean, one thing I can do as well is because it's difficult when you work and you've got like the stuff that you depend on constantly in a state of flux. So one thing I could do really is I can look at when I create an interface, like a message structure to publish on an endpoint, I can version that endpoint. So I can have like I don't know. So currently what I've got is I've got Sky360 / images or like videos or something. I can't remember the exact, but what I can do is I can have Sky360 / images / v1, and the same with all sorts of other things, so that and once that v1's been defined, it'll remain as v1. I won't change the message. If I want to change the message, I will create a v2 endpoint, so that at least that way, if Rebecca is depending on the v1 endpoint, she knows the message structure and the endpoint's going to remain the same. And when she's ready to migrate to the V2 endpoint, she can migrate to the V2 endpoint, and then we can, at that point, we can mark the V1 endpoint as obsolete or get rid of it. So we can kind of just, that's probably what I would suggest,
nice
just to
idea.
make it
Flexible.
just so we can, just so that once we've got a message type published and that goes on an interface, you version that, and then if you need to change the message type, you just bump the version up. And I kind of understand you can end up in a position where you've got like several different versions of the same endpoint, but I think maybe once a month or once a quarter we can just go through and just tidy all that stuff up and go, we're going to bin the V1s now, so they're going to go away for the next build, so make sure you move over to the V2s or whatnot, Anyway, that's just a view.
That's a nice idea. It helps development and keeps things modular. And no one is waiting for someone else. No one is blocking.
Yeah, exactly that sort of thing, really. And if I want to make changes, like if I add new functionality, then it just goes up with another version, and and then whoever is the consumer of that or the subscriber to that, that message, they can move over to the new version when they have time.
Yeah, exactly. When it fits their dev, right? It's a great idea. It's a good idea, Mike. Absolutely. And as we now talk about it, you really see that it's so important for Rebecca, for example, or let's say Magnus, or who else, who's not familiar. You were busy with ROS 2 the last couple of days or weeks even, and you are more ahead than all others. And what I see here is, I think it's good that you share your thoughts with us, because it helps others to jump on the same front line. And especially if they can use what you already did, so kind of a ROS 2 template or structure that you define.
Yeah, sure.
If we do not get it from Christian or Ido, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I get it. So
we help ourselves.
It's just it's just doing it, which is the thing as well. But that's fair. That's fair enough. I mean, I got that launch thing working at like 12:30 last night. I was so chuffed with myself. So it is. We can only do what we can do. So as I say, I'll try and see if I can get some sort of Docker image up and running as quick as possible.
Perfect. Thank you. Helps them all.
No worries.
Awesome.
Yeah, Rebecca, one info. Christian said that he will finalize this week the image creation part from the camera. So by, let's say, end of the week, you will get how to subscribe to his service.
So it will be frame per frame, and it will not be encoded into a video.
It will not be encoded into a video. It will be just frame by frame. But he works with fire capture for now, and please do not get confused. It's just for quick testing.
I think you meant possibly Magnus, because he was working on the media player to receive those frames.
Yeah, so for now he's just working with fire capture, and that creates a video stream. But for him it's just a testing whether the flow of data stream is correct. And later on he will change, because he's just one person. He cannot do two things at the same time, and he has to set up his 3D printer because he needs the adapter. So in order to make the camera, and so one thing gets to the other. And I said, okay, Christian, do as you think is right, and we pick from there. Whatever we'll get.
But Christian. All right, but you're saying Christian's the one that's doing that, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry. I thought you said that I was finishing that.
No.
I said what?
I'm just the secretary. I'm just the T-boy here.
the message person.
Yeah. The messenger.
Guys, I'm gonna have to jump. Okay.
Yes, actually, we are. If there is no other question, we're actually done for today. Are we?
Okay.
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
No
Ghost?
worries.
A philosophic question from Ghost. Bye, Rebecca.
No, I just was gonna, say the hi, bye. Again, I'm just trying to get myself caught back up because I've been away from the project so long, and and the other thing is I keep getting sidetracked. Like after the meeting last week, last Sunday, I went and looked into ROS 2, because first I'd heard about it, and I said, oh, fantastic, let's go, let's do an implementation. Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm going, well, I have this weird fantasy of having all this junk behind me all be on the same OS. Okay, and it's a whole variety of different system types and so on. Fantastic. So I was looking at ROS there a little bit, and I was going, well, I found one that said, here's how you solve the problem of Debian not booting on PowerPC. Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. I don't know, it doesn't like me, something like that. I spent the last 2 days, doing big number of reinstalls on it. And the whole goal, though, was to get that all just, I was going to be almost done, and now I'll go look at ROS 2 and see, take off on that, because I've done a lot of operating system work. Somehow, getting from here to there is just, I don't know what's going on. It's like,
it's software magic.
Yeah. So, anyway, but that's, so like I said, I'm trying to get me back on track because, I've got a bunch of parts over here that were started as a SkyHub tracker. Now they're Sky 360 tracker. Right. I want to see them do something. Yeah. I know, how strange. I don't know where I get these ideas, but oh well. Anyhow, so the plot for today, after today's meeting, is okay. Dump all, all that's effort under the bridge. Get on ROS and and get a good handle on how it works, because that is the goal, is to have a tracker up and running as soon as practical. Yeah. And that's so I got to not lose sight of that, but it's just there's so many diversions, and I could go do this real quick, and it won't take a minute. And
oh dear.
Again, I know I'm not unique or alone in that. Yeah. But anyway, on that happy note, I just say hi, bye, and I'll I am planning to be here going forward. But as I mentioned, there's some other factors. I may be slightly erratic, but I am trying to say, okay, Sunday morning here on the west coast of the U.S., this is what I'm doing.
Okay. So
anyhow,
thanks, Ghost,
right,
for being here.
Good getting back with everybody.
And being as a supportive person with our endeavor, and the station here, of course.
Oh, you have a station, nice.
He's building on it.
Yeah.
He's not,
and
not
the whole plot, like I said, is well, like I said, the whole plot here is, I have this weird idea too. I like to contribute. Okay, it's one of those. I will. Yeah, and I'll throw 10 ideas out there, and if some, none, or all of them are useful, great. If they're not useful, okay, we'll come up with something new. The idea is to be thinking about.
At least we eliminated
how to use it.
Such ideas need their timing. We are now focused to get our first release out and from the ground. So for now, we do not ventilate new ideas from. What we can do in the future. But I can remember our discussions and your ideas, and there were certainly some things that we have to implement in the future. So I do not want to disappoint any other contributors who have good ideas. We're still open to hear them.
Oh no!
I just wanted to make, because this is a recorded video, and other people will see this afterwards. That's why I say this, not actually to us here, but to the audience. That we are still open for ideas, but we are now focused for the alpha, and will implement those ideas in the future. That's what I wanted to say. On that note.
Well, no, I do understand the idea of getting things. Okay, here's what we're running with for the moment. And like I said, I don't have any problem with that, because one of my things, no matter what I actually wind up building, is whatever the normal output is from it that's going to be, go out and be analyzed or whatever. It will be whatever the standard, for lack of a better term here, is. Now, if I want to tag some things onto that, well, that's up to me. That's on me. Sure. And so I don't have, again, I have no problem. Or as a, next year or a decade from now, we'll go back and look at this other idea. So I have no problem with that.
And it's very important to have all your feedback.
I'm very big on.
It's very important.
Yeah, there you go.
So from whatever you build and the software that it will use, then we very important that you share your experiences.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, first thing is get kind of the standard basic implementation up and running, and that's where I'm trying to get back to. So anyway, on that happy note, good talking with you, and like I said, I'm glad to be kind of at least getting back to where I left off, because that whole trip is still a nightmare in my mind. It's like, no, and it's not over with yet. So as I said, I got some other issues there to be dealing with, but again, get back to making the stuff out here actually do what I, was planning to have it do a year ago. So.
Okay. Take your time.
All right. Well, hey, y'all. Oh yeah. Well, y'all have a fine one, and I'll quit yakking because I do.
Have a fine Sunday.
Kind of drone on too. So.
Nicola,
thank you. Y'all as well.
Bye, guys. See you next Sunday.